it's so good to be with you today. I'm glad that most of the kids have left at this point because that lets me be honest and truthful with you without spoiling any of their futures. I get to do the knowing and being known today. And, in it, I'm going to be talking about Stephen ministry, which is one of the important care opportunities here at St. Peter's. But, what this comes down to is, life rolls along and you think you're following your plan, and it doesn't always work out that way. You've heard, if you just stick to it and really focus, you can get that done exactly the way you want to. Well, you know what? There's a whole different thing going on. God's got other plans, and we don't get to know what those are. But, I was very fortunate, God willing, through the young part of my life, things went according to plan. I started feeling like, by golly, I got this. You just have to really stick to it, and it's going to be just fine. And then it's not, because God does have a different plan. And so, I went through school. I did all the things. Things went according to plan, except for that one time, our freshman year, where Laura ran against me for sophomore class president, and she won. It's like, what? It was a little inkling that things might not always go according to my plan. But what I want to get to today is a point in life where things were a big surprise. That it also set up my first experience with Stephen ministry. It happened in the spring of 1995 when I was working for Nestle, the rather large food company you are all familiar with, and I was in Glendale. Suddenly I was no longer working at Nestle. I'd been married for 17 years. My daughters were just finishing their freshman year of high school in the 5th grade. My son hadn't even started school yet. My marketing director job was eliminated in a restructuring that took out that entire layer of management. So I came into work one day, and at about 10 o'clock in the morning, I see them walking my boss out with her box. And I'm just wondering how long until that knock is on my door. Well, I suddenly found myself going to an outplacement office every day, still wearing a coat and tie, because that's what we did back then. But there was just this sudden change in the realization that I was no longer in charge of my plan. So I was going to Rolling Hills United Methodist Church at the time, and I was in leadership there. And I sat down and talked with the pastor, Martha, and told her what I was going through. And she said, well, you know what? There's something we got for you. We've got Stephen ministry here, and I have exactly the right person for you to talk with. And I said, well, I'll give it a try. I mean, after all, it's not my plan anymore. So a day later, I got a call from a guy, I think his name was Tom, and he was the perfect guy. He was head of sales for a major global corporation that happened to be in the elevator business. And he had seen people through these kinds of life changes before. And so it was perfect. He knew everything about the ups and downs of business. So, the thing that really, all right, you guys were a little slow on that one. Okay, I set that one up and it's like, whew. So there you go. This whole thing about plans, right? Anyway, I got together with him once a week for about 4 months. And he met me right where I was. I think one of the great benefits of Stephen ministry is I had never met this man before, and he had never met me. He didn't know about Laura and losing in the sophomore year. There were a lot of things I didn't carry forward baggage that he had to understand. He was totally focused on what's the problem right now, and what can we do about it, and how can we pray about it. And how can I just walk with you and support you through this challenge that you're going through? And so part of my problem back then was I hadn't really set up a network of friends other than the Indian princess dads, you know? My kids were just at that age, and that was our group, and there were some good friends in that, and they helped me with the career part, and were there and, pointed me the right directions, and I got to talk with them about the career stuff. But we couldn't talk about feelings. I mean, they couldn't give me the prayer support that I needed. They couldn't really just stand there and be with me while I worked my way out of the pit. And in that hymn that we sang earlier, we talked about, being pulled out of the pit. Well, the point of a Stephen minister is the Stephen minister isn't in the pit. He's standing on the edge. He's holding on to the root of the tree of Jesus Christ and the love of the church and the love of God. Meanwhile, giving me a hand while I'm down in the pit and saying, come on up, we're going to get you through this. And, it really was an amazing process for me. And it set up the whole idea that I can actually talk about feelings and be prepared for what comes next. Well, what comes next was a relocation to Denver and moving my family and taking on a job that suddenly turned into 60% travel. And it broke a lot of the things that were important to me in terms of being a family. But by then, I had some of this experience. I was ready to move forward and face the challenges that I faced really for the next 12 years. That I knew that had happened here. So through that time, I took a new job with one of Nestle's biggest customers. It worked fine for about a year and a half, and then it didn't. So I was, again, in the same boat, having to look for a different kind of job, where I decided I'm not going to be a migrant worker for the corporate world anymore. I built my own company. I ended up closing that when it didn't work as well as I'd hoped. My marriage ended. I moved back to Southern California from Colorado and went through several years of what I call the single life, 10 to be exact, until I ran into Laura and got to start following God's plan instead of mine. I found out mine didn't work, and God's does. So no matter the struggle, no matter the pain, if you're living it in God's life, in God's plan, it gets through. So just a plug for Stephen Ministry. We've got a great program here at this church. It's led by some terrific people, Pam Barkley, Nancy Seipert, Valerie Ryan, and importantly, Paul Barrett. That, when there's a pinch, when there's a bind, when there's a problem, a struggle in life that you need some help, you need a hand reaching down from solid ground. That's what Stephen Ministry is for. And so call Paul, call one of the other leaders. If you've got a friend in need, and even if that friend might be you, now's the time. We're here and we're ready. So thank you very much.